Hello everybody and welcome to this new video. This is going to be a more friendly and more informal video in which we are going to explore some of Pragmabeat's features. On this video we are going to go a little bit at a slower pace, so it's probably going to be a very long video. Pragmabeat is a drum library. It hosts 4 sequencers where we can program sequences of hits or kit pieces, the way we call them. Things like kick, snare, hi-hats and everything else. But also it supports 4 loops lanes which play back different type of loops, from percussions to toms to effects, noises and tonal loops. We are gonna have a listen to some of them later on. We can trigger the kit pieces using the key switches over here from C1 and then D1, E1 and F1. And all these sounds are multi-sampled. They have multiple round robins and velocity layers. We can trigger the loops from C2. We have a hi-hat loop over there, tambourine, tambora, and a toms loop. By pressing C3 over here, this red key over here, we can play all the loops and sequences that are on or active at the same time. So at the moment we have kick and snare kit pieces and the hi-hat loop playing at the same time. So when I press C3, that's what I hear. Now I can switch on also the other loops and just have a look at what they all sound together. Also, I can see here that on the 4th sequencer there is really nothing programmed there, so I'm just going to put a few lines over there to hear. So that's how you play all the loops and all the sequences at the same time. Now, of course, you can decide to have some of them switched off and some others on. So now you can notice, especially on the snare, that sometimes the hits don't sound exactly the same, and that's the effect of the round robin. It gives a little bit more of a realistic touch, and that works for all the kit pieces. It doesn't work for the loops. The loops don't have round robins. The loops were recorded up to 4 bars, so there is plenty of variation there. Speaking of variations, we can introduce some scripted variations by pressing the Improvise rhythm button. There is one Improvise rhythm button in every sequence and in every loop lane. If I press Improvise rhythm, for example, on the snare, that's what I get. And I can switch on and off this button whenever I need to. And I can also assign it to a CC automation. But we also created some key switches for that, and we are going to explore them a little bit later. When I use the Improvise rhythm on the loops, randomizing the order of the slices, the script basically is creating a new performance of the loop. To do that, the script divides in several slices the full loop. We can, for example, decide to divide this loop of hi-hat every 1/8 of a bar. So when I press Improvise, we can also insert different other types of variations by, for example, pressing the dice over here on the snare. There is, like, as you can see, a dice for every track in Pragmabeat. We can press this button on the snare, then this will randomize the sounds per step. So you will hear that the sound of the snare will change on some steps. It might not be the case to use this feature on an acoustic kit, but it could be very creative to use it when we do more kind of electronic type of music. And we have plenty of those kits and sounds in Pragmabeat. The amount of sound randomization is set with this value edit over here. If I put it to 20, which is the maximum, I will hear many different sounds. Another thing that we can do with the sequences and the loops is to use the sidechain option in the loop lanes. Let's, for example, load a new sound on this lane over here. So to load a new sound, I just click on the icon and go and select. As you can see, we have many sounds. These are real percussion, but I'm gonna use let's see, a processed sound and something deep. Okay, or maybe like a monster kick. Let's just press that. I'm loading the sound on the 7th layer here, which is the 3rd loop layer. I will trigger it by using the E2 key over here. Also, you can see there is a little handy writing there on the left bottom of the GUI. So I can just click on the name and I'll audition the sounds that way. So let me get maybe... Okay, I'm gonna get that and confirm and close. So now that sound will play on the layer C. Let's switch this layer on. So if I were to play this loop, it would sound like this. Sidechain feature comes in handy because I can tell layer C to watch for what's happening on layer 1. So if I sidechain with sequence 1, which is the kick drum, I see that the script goes and it looks for all the steps where the kick drum is playing. It's gonna switch off the slices in those exact places. So that bass build-up is kind of eliminated at this point. So we can happily have these monsters kicks together with a kick drum and they are not going to fight. Now I can put the volume of the monster kicks a little bit down from here, but I could also go to the mixer and the monster kicks are going to be here. And now, as I mentioned before, we don't have only acoustic type of sounds. Over here, we have a style menu. You can see we have real sounds, designed, machine drums, variable, hybrid, cinematic, minimal. We can also go to the browser and see real acoustic, design, drum machine, variable, hybrid, cinematic. And we have high percussions, things like agogo, cabazina, cabasa, hi-hats. We have low percussions, acoustic, designed, drum machine, variable, hybrid, cinematic, the same categories. So we have bendiras, China drums, jundun, so on, so many. Okay, we have snare drums, of course, and still within the same category, real acoustic, drum machine, and so on. So many kick drums. And then when it comes to loops, let's go, for example, on loop C. We can see that we have some real loops with hi-hat, cymbal, and ghost notes. Ghost notes are quite useful because they add really a realistic touch to the performance. For example, we can load it on the first one. I'm pressing again C2, which is the trigger for loop A. When we use it together with a kick snare, and then I go to the loop lane and improvise the rhythm, and I maybe use 1/4. And maybe in the mixer, I put it more in the center. Now you can see how this hi-hat is varying all the time. Maybe you might not want it to vary that much. So we have added some key switches. Let's click on this gear over here and let's reveal the additional key switches. Now we have plenty of key switches over here. The first two groups of key switches will switch on and off the layer. I can switch off the kick drum like that and then reactivate it like that, or the snare. Or the loop A starting from F and back on. Now the second sets of key switches, the violet and the blue one, instead command the improvise rhythm buttons. So the first 4 from C till D sharp are gonna be for the kit pieces, but the second 4 from F till G sharp are gonna be for the loop lanes. So I want, for example, to use this improvise rhythm on the first of the loops. It's gonna be F. So I'm just gonna keep it pressed whenever I want it, and then when I release, the improvise feature will be off. So watch out for this button, how it comes on and off. And the third set of key switches instead pertains to the sound randomization. So we heard how the sound randomization works on the snare before. So now we're going to try on the loops. So I'm going to randomize the hi-hat. So I'm going to press this F over here. And if we increase this number, the script is going to look for a bigger pool of loops. we have 24 scenes where performances can be stored. And when I say performances, I mean every parameter of every sequence and every loop, every sound, every effect, every volume, pan, and any setting will be stored in 24 locations, which we can recall by pressing these 24 green key switches. Press the first of the key switches. Nothing will happen because that's scene number 1 and we are already in scene number 1. And just to refresh the memory, this is the loop we are having here. Let's close this gear here. I'm going to copy the whole set of controls and parameters from scene number 1, copy. Then I select scene number 3, for example, pressing this one, you see number changed. And I'm going to paste everything. So now when I play scene number 3, you can see over here in 3, it should sound exactly like scene 1. Now, what I can do, I can just introduce some variations here on the snare. And maybe also one at the beginning. So now it sounds slightly different from the first pattern. But what I can do, I can switch from scene 1 to scene 3 very quickly, just while I'm pressing C3. By the way, when you are playing the full performance with C3, you could also play the 4 kit pieces over here with this. So just create some impromptu performances. Of course, I would quantize them then later in the DAW. But there is a better way to create fills with Pragmabeat. It's the automatic fills feature. We have rolls, snare fills, and snare toms fills. While we have the loop going, if I press C#3, a roll will be triggered. So there are 3 different rolls that are mapped in 3 different velocity layers. If I press instead D3, a snare fill will be created. And each time I press it, it will be a different fill. If I press instead D#3, I have a tom and snare fill. And a crash on the one. We can do that also by pressing this blue key switch over here, E3, and it sounds like this. You can hear that every time I press E3, a different crash or cymbal sound is triggered. And that's because, as you can see in this bottom of the GUI over here, when the gear is pressed, under the crash cymbals menu, the random reel is selected at that point. I have also other choices. I can select any type of crash or china or splash. that is in the list. There are real crashes, machine drums crashes, design, and so on, also ethnic, cinematic. I can just select one of them, and every time I press E3, the same sound will be triggered. So you can hear it's always the same one. But if I select instead random real, a different sound will come each time. And so on. We can, of course, adjust the crash volume over here. The toms that are in the fill, they have a volume over here as well. Now, when it comes to the fills, one could say, but what if I wanted to have the same fill all the time because I like it? We have thought about that. We have 7 memory locations for the fills, so you have 7 fills that you can use at any time and trigger exactly the fill you want. We are gonna reveal the toms keys, which is over here, this 7 yellow keys over here. Let's, for example, generate again randomly one fill with a snare. Now remember that fill. I'm gonna press fill 1. This button over here becomes blue. Now when I press the first of the yellow keys, which is F, it should repeat the snare fill that I just created. Then if I was to generate another one by pressing D3, now I can save that one on location number 2 over here, and I will recall it with F sharp. So now F sharp and F. We can also save the ones that we do with the toms, so we create a new one. And I'm gonna save that on the 3rd location, so I will recall it with G3. And then I do a random one. And now F sharp. But I can also mix them up. Random, G, and so on. Random tom, roll. The core of Pragmabeat is actually the automatic sound combination and pattern creation. We see these 2 blue buttons over here. At the moment I'm in the real category or real style. If I press this button over here, the script has generated a new combination of real acoustic sounds, and you can see also that it switched on all the buttons so we can hear all of them. So in this case the new combination will sound like that. Now it's a bit busy because everything is on at the same time. You can go to the mixer and, for example, so. Now, bear in mind that we are working on scene number 1. If I go back to scene number 3, pressing this key switch, we have still what we had before, so nothing has changed there. So everything that I create on one scene is stored totally, sounds, controls, parameters, and everything. So I can switch from these 2 scenes. You can also think this 24 scenes like they were different parts of a song or different patterns for the song. So they might all have the same sound but totally different patterns and grooves. Then if I press generate rhythms, okay, let's go back to the new sounds that we had just now. If I press generate rhythms, then a new groove is generated. I can do some drum fills. Or I can change again the sound. And I can change the rhythm. Or I can click this link button over here and generate rhythms and sounds at the same time. We can generate sounds and rhythms for all the scenes at the same time by pressing this button over here. So if I do that, you see all the numbers going really fast over there. So let's see what happened on scene number, I don't know, 12. Now you see that on number 12, the hi-hat is again louder, and I actually put the hi-hat a little bit softer on scene 1. So I don't have to go to every scene and put the hi-hat down again. What I'll do, I'm gonna go to the mixer, and if this is the volume I want for the hi-hat, I'm gonna say settings to all. So when I go back to what was scene 12 here, the hi-hat volume is correct. Okay, now there is another really cool way of doing automatic rhythms, and it is to use the progressive automatic creation of patterns and sounds. This will create more sparse and less busy grooves on the first scenes, and then you progressively get busier and busier until scene 24 has all the sounds playing at the same time, and it's very busy. So let's check that. So generate all. Now we'll have different sounds and different patterns, but when we go to scene number 1, you see that the colors have changed here, like a rainbow. Yellow is more sparse and red is really hot. So let's see what happens. Okay, then if I go to scene, I don't know, 6. There's something happening more, and then green. You can see scene 21 is really busy now. Fail! And then I go back to scene 1 and there is another way of controlling the busyness of each groove, and it's using the mode wheel. If I use the mode wheel, you will see that at some point some of the loop will drop and there will be less notes happening at the same time. Then I can go back down and make it more busy. Of course, you can record it in your DAW because it's the mod wheel CC1 after all. We still didn't get to listen to other type of sounds. Anyway, let's do it now. For example, listen to the design ones, which are acoustic and machine drums, which we mangled and basically designed totally new sounds. If I press generate all, now it will load totally different pool of sounds. So let's generate, and when we switch to a different style that we haven't used yet in a patch, it will take a little bit longer to load all the sounds, because as I said, it's a totally different pool of sounds. This is done. I press C3. This is the same groove as before, but the sounds are totally different. And you can see that the toms have changed, because these are design toms. Also the type of sound for the cymbals. And we can explore some more sounds and rhythms as well. So you see how fast it is now when the sounds are all loaded in the memory. Then we have machine, so drum machines, and generate all. And again, it will take a little bit longer, but it's worth it. Again. Another machine sound. Then go in scene 3 and generate another one. And another one on scene 5. Now you can hear that there is this wee. I think it's here. Okay, what's happening there? Design kind of style assign also different effects to the sounds we have. So if we go to the effects page, we are going to see that one of the main effects that we have available is the transform effect, and it's on. So if I play that sound on its own, I switch off the transform. It's just what is this? Percussion anyway. But with the transform on, I can change this one into a lot of different. Oh, that's cool. Let's see. Or a different one. So now if I go back to the main page and switch from scene 1 to 3 to 5, I will have different sounds. And you can see that on scene 3 we still have that effect on, but on scene 5 it is off. But we could maybe switch it on and keep this sound. And back on scene 3 we have a different impulse response for the transform. Can also be creative, do things like this. I select, for example, this snare over here, which sounds like that, and I can just take away the attack, or like that, or I'd add a clap to it, or just a clap. By the way, it's quite loud, so I'm gonna put it down a bit. But I could also pitch it. Or change the just because we are in the mixing page, we have the usual suspects like solo or mute. This is the button to go straight to the effects page. And this is the effect sense on and off. And all these things, as I said, can be stored per scene. So whatever change I make on the pitch here, you can see it's not in scene number 1, but when I go back to scene number 5, here it is again. The variable sounds are quite unique because instead of having different dynamics on each velocity layer, we have different sounds on each velocity layer. So when I, for example, if I have this snare, and let's load a variable sound, for example, variable boom. See, each velocity will trigger a different sound. And that is quite useful in experimental music. Let's create a full kit with variable sounds. So generate sounds. Some of these steps are on and others are off. That's how we kind of create different performances for the loops. So this one. Instead of playing the whole thing, or even this one. Instead of playing the whole thing. And since this one is quite low, and let me put it in the center, by the way. It was this one. Yeah, it's like a kick. Let me put in the center, then I go back to the main page and side chain it with kick. And I have also this one going on, so I can do the same thing for this one and this. So I am gonna sidechain this one with sequence 3. Let's do another couple of sounds combinations. Oh, I love this one. Feel. And then we have the hybrid kind of style. There are some tonal elements in this because we have sampled a lot of tonal loops. Let's have a listen to some of them, like this one is and another one. Oh, it's quite loud. So what are we here? Okay, so let's go back to the browser just by pressing this one over here. And maybe I can go to the snare and select something a little bit more, something harder. Maybe to go back to scene number 1. And this is, I guess it was designed sounds, but when I go back to that was machines, and this is the hybrid one. Now, if I go to a new scene, scene number 6, and I load, let's say again, I don't know, machine, generate sound, you see it doesn't take any time because we already have some machine sounds loaded. So the whole pool of samples for the drum machines is being loaded already. So I can just play my... Let's change the rhythm. Put scene number 8, then we're going to load that and go to the cinematic sound pool or category or style, which again will take a little bit longer. And again, it's worth it. Let's also generate rhythms for that, because every style has different rhythms. Let's generate another one, and also rhythm. And another one, and generate rhythms. And maybe let's change also scene and generate sounds and rhythms again. And let's go also to scene number 12 and generate something over there. Maybe this time with the machine again. Generate sounds. See, that's almost instant. The reason why I'm doing this, it's because we have also another really fun stuff over here. The button says random here. I'm gonna press it, and then I'm gonna press C3, and this is what happens. Look at this number over here. Okay, let's change this value over here. So basically Pragmabeat now is going crazy. It's changing randomly from one scene to the next. And there might be some style of music, actually those are our favorite style of music at Audiofier, where you need to have this kind of total madness variation. We have only one more sound type to explore, which is the minimal, which sounds like this. I'm gonna use the mod wheel. And then, of course, if I was to select this scene number here, like 613, and I decide to have, let's say, drum machine sound here, design sound over there, kick, real acoustic kick over there. I don't know how it's gonna sound, but and maybe a loop which is effects, and a loop which is real concert percussion. That's gonna be a mess probably, but let's see. Okay, that's what we have. Now, if I wanted to keep this sound categories for each of those kit pieces or loops, I can use the user style and then generate sounds, and the script will look for sounds within the category that I chosen. Or another thing I can do is, for example, to select random, and this is going to be a total surprise. And again. and again. These are the most important features in Pragmabeat. Pragmabeat is available now. You can find it at audiofier.com. Have a great day. Thank you for watching this video. Bye-bye.